Hi, I'm Morgan Hines in the PhocusWire studio with Mike McGearty of Meili and Niall Carson of Mozio Ground Transportation. Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm just going to dive right into it. Mike, you've said that car rental services are due for a revolution. Can you give me a little bit of a review on that, like 3 sentences on how that should look?
Yeah, look, I think car rental traditionally has been lost to the intermediaries. So most customers today are booking through indirect channels. That seems to be fraught with, it's a commoditized version of the product. So therefore, customers really are not seeing the true reflection of what the companies are offering, what the services include. There's a lot of mistrust built then because it's through indirect distribution. And customers are forced to purchase insurance from brokers, etc., which causes a huge amount of friction at the desk because it's not recognized by the car rental companies. So for me, all of that mistrust, misunderstanding about car rental absolutely needs to be changed. And therefore, we do need, I think it's a revolution rather than an evolution of how we do things so that customers actually get the trust that the car rental companies actually deserve, because they have driven huge improvements over the last decade in the services that they offer.
Got it. Okay. And Niall, I know you're in ground transportation, more focused now, but you've worked in the car rental space. Do you agree that that space is in need of a revolution? And if you do, why hasn't it been addressed yet?
Well, I think post-COVID, in this industry, we're all very much focused on the user experience. On the user experience. And what we're looking at is making sure that our global travelers are having the best possible experience and arriving at a car rental desk and having friction, tension, and that level of anxiety caused when you're just getting off, even a short haul flight, but a long haul flight particularly, can cause a lot of stress to the family, to a group traveling. So I would absolutely agree. Across the industry, we need a revolution when it comes to offering clarity, transparency, and making sure that the traveller feels comfortable.
With this kind of idea of a revolution in mind, if the industry were to take on that kind of initiative, how long do you think that would take to come to fruition?
Well, I think, it's going to start with small steps. So it's about understanding how they build up that trust and loyalty with the customer. What we are seeing, especially in the partnerships that we're supporting through multiple airlines, hotel groups, etc., where you include the loyalty of the car rental companies together with the loyalty programs of the airlines themselves, that in itself supports much better outcome, and it instills trust, and that gets customers booking on a recurring basis with the same brands, and that's what builds trust. But that takes time. So step by step, you increase the number of customers that are booking direct with you, and then you will see a better representation in the marketplace of what customers think of your product, what they experience, and what they tell others about.
Okay, so thinking about the friction that you've both mentioned now that exists, we're hearing a lot about companies focusing on this initiative of the kind of connected trip that would streamline processes, reduce friction, reduce the need to book from other platforms, that end-to-end experience. Do you think that could ever really come to fruition under the hood of one company?
Look, I think the connected trip is something that I don't agree with the terminology around it, because I think it's about having transparency in the market and allowing the customer to book the products and the services that they want through the channels that they want to book through. And I think each of those channels needs to have transparency in how they display the product, show the product, the different attributes of the service to the customer. So for me, it's about, well, how do you best deliver that product to the customers that you're targeting? And if it's combined with other products, that's great. If it's standalone, that's it. But it shouldn't be forced. It's not about just pushing products because you're trying to maximize your return from that customer, and that by doing so, there's information that's not properly displayed, and the customer just isn't booking what they want. So for me, I just don't like the connected term trip. It's about offering the right product and service at the right time to the customer through the channels that they want to book.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I just think it's all about the onus is on us as providers, us as partners to enhance the customer experience. The customer will ultimately make the choice, but I do think that, I agree that the terminology is probably overused, but I do agree that the whole experience has to be enhanced. It has to be seamless and frictionless, and I think that's what customers are ultimately going to make their decisions based on, the better user experience. I think just deciding on price, it isn't. That's not how things are going anymore.
Like if we look at Mozio, for example, like one of the key things to remove friction there is by offering a really good, strong digital experience to the customer. So if they pre-book a transfer, that they know where the driver is going to be, that it's you're supporting them along each and every stage, that it's transparent in terms of what service they're getting, that there's a quality driver behind that, etc. So the execution is really, really important. And in this digital age, that's where we can improve on the services that we deliver. So by partnering with people and using companies that have invested to put that infrastructure in place to be able to deliver that quality of service, they're the ones that you need to make sure are rising to the top, and that the space isn't crowded out by others that are trying to compete but don't have the same product. And that's where there is a misrepresentation today, in where sometimes displays don't compare apples with apples.
Okay, and so thinking about best offerings, how essential is partnering to the success of each of your businesses?
Well, for me, it's everything, because what we're doing is we're a technology platform that's enabling providers of services to partner with airlines and other travel brands that they believe there's a strong opportunity to sell their product to. So for us, we don't exist without partnership. Our technology doesn't exist.
And we're the exact same. We're a B2B platform. It's our partners are everything to us. So, and it's interesting when you look at Meili. You're coming out with cutting edge technology that's really challenging the market, and that's what partners are looking for. They are the key to a partnership is making your partner's life easy. Okay, you're not going to have a good working relationship if all you're causing is problems. And I think that's something that Mozio and Meili, we're both really passionate about, making their lives easier and in turn delivering the best possible service through them to their customers.
Got it. And as we continue to think about that and making everyone's lives easier, what emerging technologies are kind of the most essential to ground transportation and car rentals that are kind of in the system right now?
I think one of the key things for us, we're limited to a certain extent in terms of the APIs that the car rental companies are able to provide us with, or the likes of Mozio can give us. So the more investment in the kind of APIs of the car rental companies and other service providers allows us to better display their product, to show all of the different attributes, to say, okay, here's where direct to car is available, or you will have a GPS ping for where your driver is going to be located. So all of those are driven by the APIs. So for me, that's a critical move forward, and that allows us then to make sure that there's a seamless movement of information right across the platform, so that we can display it on the front end. The customer books it. All of their information then is flowed through to the service provider that can then go about the execution of that service to them.
Got it. Okay.
I think when you map out the customer journey in any area of ground transportation, be that on the transfer side or car rental, I think the people who are going to rise to the top are those who really look after that journey, strip it back, simplify it, and make sure on the API front that you're sending through the right information, so you don't end up with the partner receiving a phone call and they don't have access to the information. I mean, for us, we have 24/7 phone support, but a good day is when that phone doesn't ring, because we know we've sent through the right information. The customer has the detail of the driver, the timing. The driver tracks the flight, so we use the technology there to update the driver and when the flight is landing, for the airport collections. But I would totally agree with Mike. It's very much using that technology, pulling everything through APIs. Like, companies need to be API specialized and make it easy for their partners to integrate or to build on top of that.
Because otherwise, when you look at the new technologies that are available now, whether it be, AI, LLMs, etc., there's a huge restriction and barrier there if you don't have those APIs, because you can't, it's all about automating everything end to end. And, where you have a human element, like the only human element that you really want is when the person goes to pick up the car. And even then, that's been taken out of the equation. So it really has to simplify everything where it's streamlined, automated, and that benefits everybody. Certainly benefits the customer, but it benefits the companies as well providing the services, because it reduces their cost, their overhead significantly.
So as we talk about AI, obviously that's been such a hot topic for almost 2 years now as we come up on the anniversary of ChatGPT. Does it mostly fit into the customer journey like you're saying, or is what is the place of AI in ground transportation?
I think companies today, they need to take a long-term view on how AI, LLMs are going to influence their business. If they think short-term, and lots of people are, talking today about AI Genie, and, that's the easy part of it, right? Where it's going to have a massive impact is in all elements of your business. So if you take, how you produce code, LLMs can be hugely influential there and mean that the number of developers you need can produce a hell of a lot more code, where you can innovate more and produce better product and technology. But it also influences your data analytics, right? So you can segment to very, very small segments of customers what they're looking for. And by understanding that and feeding that back to the service providers, they can improve their product and service. It can enhance your customer service, how you provide the service and automate things for the customer. It can produce, help how you produce content to just better communicate with the customer and hold their hand as they're consuming the product or the service. So for me, AI, LLMs are a long-term view. You need to know how it's going to influence your business and have a very clear strategy. Otherwise, you'll just touch and you'll do the basic things, but the basic things are not really going to propel things forward in the future.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the saying in Ireland is you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I think, while we want to embrace it, I think long-term view is exactly the right term, because, our core businesses need to still deliver the service they're meant to. But I agree in the back end, on the analysis side of it, improving some of the flow in the back end. Absolutely. I think AI is probably, the way we've been modeling things for the last few years, it's been part of everyone's business already in the way we've had machine learning and working through. But it's certainly I think long-term view is the right statement there.
So in the long term, obviously there's been quite a hype cycle around AI. Where do you see that going? Do you think things have been implemented as quickly as you would have anticipated in the ground transportation space? Or is it taking a little longer for AI to really change things than we might have expected a few years ago?
I think it will take a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I think, I think companies like Meili will benefit more in the short term from use of AI and LLMs than perhaps maybe the car rental companies themselves, because, they do have legacy technology, and therefore, in order to really get the best, so AI and LLMs could help them actually replace some of the legacy tech that is a huge limitation on them today. So that's where they could go. But it's about what's our approach, what's our strategy here, and how can it have the biggest influence and change on our business. And I think the big thing here is if companies don't deploy a really strong strategy and approach here on how to use it, they will get further left behind and further disrupted.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
Well, I think, look, when you attend an event like Phocuswright and there's a hot topic like AI, everybody's talking about it. But, it's the long-term view, going back to that, it's about approaching it and making the right decisions. And I would say that in ground transportation, there's quite a human element and a physical element, be that delivering the car to the driver or delivering a car with a driver.
Yeah.
So it's a very personalized model. So there's certain elements of that service delivery at the moment, unless we start talking about Waymo, which is obviously a different element.
And we can talk about that
Yeah,
here
yeah,
in Phoenix.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's incredible.
Did you guys take a Waymo?
Not yet, but I actually was. Our car was alongside it, and I was just watching. I think our driver said that everybody in a Waymo is videoing. They're just taking hold of this whole experience, watching. And I was really impressed by it, though. It moves a lot faster than I thought it would, and with a lot, like pulling in and parking and picking up. I couldn't believe how smooth that looked. So it's the future. Is certainly going to be an interesting one in this industry.
Yeah, is that something that you're talking about in ground transportation? Adopting?
Well, I've been in on the ground transportation space for 20 years, but in ride hailing, I was there for 8 years, and that was when I started in there 9 years ago. It was always been talked about, so it's not it's not an overnight thing. I suppose it's something that has progressed, and I think it's great the testing that's going on out here. But I think if you say, I use Ireland as an example, you're talking about medieval cities with narrow streets, and it'll put forward a lot more challenges than you might see here. But look, it's another long-term view to be taken on that, and we're definitely all talking about it for sure.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting facts there, though, is when you were talking about it 10 years ago, you would have expected probably a more significant rollout and usage of it today, 10 years later. However, I do think cycles are increasing, like the cadence of what we're delivering. Just look at AI and then models and how often they're being updated, and the advancements that you're getting, like over the last 18 months, it's phenomenal how advanced they have become. So if you roll that forward, I do think we will see a significant impact of driverless car over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But I would also agree with you. I think it's much more practical in certain cities, and in the city that we hail from, it's probably a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
As we think about ride sharing, and you said you were in that space before, I'm curious to know what kind of impact, obviously Waymo's a little bit different, but the impact of maybe Uber and Lyft on the car rental and ground transportation space. Obviously they've become such dominant players in ride sharing, but how has that changed your world?
I think what you're seeing is that Uber obviously offer car rentals, so do Lyft in North America and in other markets as well. We're actually partnering with Free Now in Europe, and we offer car rentals, so we see that very much there, and it's just an extension. And as we see asset ownership reduce in many cities, we do see that the usage of short-term rentals for 1 or 2 days, particularly at weekends, etc., is something that is very much an increase in, I would say, usage. What we're also seeing, though, are the car rental companies introducing new products. So they are offering subscription services now, where you can decide, well, I don't want to own an asset. I want to use this type of car between Monday and Friday, and then the weekend when I may have my family to think of as well, I need a larger car.
Right.
So they're delivering these, but they need a certain volume. A city has to be at a certain size level to support the introduction of those services.
Right.
So therefore, the larger cities, you will see a major rollout of these, whereas the smaller cities, it's just not practical and they can't bring it. So definitely there is a greater change there. And I think with the more understanding of how customers want to use the products and the type of products that they're looking for, I think the car rental companies will innovate and adapt and deliver those services as well into the future.
That makes a lot of sense. Seeing behavior changing with it.
Yeah, I think it's that smarter travel network where people, that access piece over ownership is, it's been coming for quite some time. We see shared, bike and scooter schemes. We've got the Zip car over here and many versions of it across Europe. But definitely having access to car rental in, urban areas is amazing because it's better for our cities as well. But I think you asked about, what impact have Uber and Lyft have. I think they've raised the bar on levels of security and transparency as well. So one of the services that we'd all be offering offering is, the track trip, so you can see your driver. The driver can connect very easily.
Yeah.
The exchange of information. You see that through the ride-hailing apps, but through transport, Mozio are offering that as well from a messaging point of view, but also just post-trip. If you still need to get in touch, you have all that information. I think the day of hailing a taxi on the street, in you get, taxi's gone off. You're like, whoa, where's my wallet? Like crazy experiences like that are a thing of the past. And that's what Uber, Lyft, and others have raised the bar and really changed the game.
Got it. That makes sense. So looking ahead, obviously, there's been a lot of optimism around business travel, and GBTA has said that half of big businesses are neglecting ground transportation in their policies. Is this a reflection of a general attitude toward ground transportation, and is that something that you would like to change if that's true?
I think there's just the level of complexity when it comes to ground transportation. You've got, one driver or a number of passengers picking up a rental car or getting in. Whereas, when you've got an airline, you've got 3 pilots looking after, hundreds of passengers. You've got a hotel like this with 1,100 rooms and 4 people working on reception. So the complexity of dealing with that one-to-one type model, I think that's why a lot of businesses are stepping back from it. But I think the technology available, through our platforms and many others, has made it a lot easier, and I think it's just bringing businesses forward, and they're embracing it a little bit more. But it's all part of the journey, I guess. I know, Mike, you probably have a view on it also.
Look, I think the one thing is, we are seeing business travel certainly return in greater numbers now. I think usage of car rental, it's certain trips and it's certain markets where we see it much greater. So in the North American market, you see it as a necessity for a business traveler. But then when you go into other cities, so anytime I go to London, the public transportation there, very seamless. If I'm going into Munich, other cities, public transport is a much more viable option, and therefore, I would always say to our staff, etc., use public transport when you can, because we have to think of a greener, more efficient world as well, and therefore, car rental is something that is becoming greener, but it's becoming very difficult for them because the infrastructure is not there. So for the cleaner cars that they want to introduce into their fleet, it's just not practical at certain airports, and I can go into it, and it's I always get amazed by some of the things that actually are huge barriers there. So for me, I think it is very much depending on the city you're traveling to, the trip that you're on, the duration of your trip, whether car rental or other forms of ground transportation, what role they play.
For business travel, that makes a lot of sense. And as we wrap up here, is there one big prediction each of you has for 2025 as we wrap up the year?
For me, I think what we're seeing is the influence of loyalty, where car rental companies and other companies are partnering with other travel companies, where they have reciprocal loyalty, status matching, where you have the ability to earn points, redeem, etc. That has a huge influence on the customer. And, traditionally we would have seen loyalty very strong in North America. Now we're seeing loyalty playing a much bigger and significant role in Europe. So for me, loyalty and how that evolves and the opportunity that exists there is significant for 2025.
Big theme.
Yeah, I would agree on the loyalty front. I think other than that, I think there's definitely a movement towards simplification. Really, travelers are voting with their feet, and they're choosing the option that's making life a lot easier for them, both on the booking front, but also, when it comes to taking the journey, book, like checking into your hotel, anything. It just, the more seamless, the better. And people were voting because I heard Ron there, who had set up Viator. He said people aren't going on holidays to get a window seat on a plane. They're going to really embrace the whole journey, the whole trip. And even on a business front, you want everything as easy as possible because you're on a limited time. You've a lot to get done. And I think that, there's a movement towards that.
think that's a great point. And the only other word I would add in there is transparency.
Oh yeah, for sure.
People, like, transparency is absolutely critical now. I think we're absolutely in an age where people won't tolerate not getting what was described, etc. So you have to be transparent in detailing out, what the service is, what it entails end to end, and that the companies are fulfilling that expectation.
All right. So loyalty, simplicity, and transparency for 2025. We've got it. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Wonderful.